Hi there, my name is Jeffrey Venture, and this is my D&Dify series. In this series, I take your favorite TV shows, movies, and other popular media and turn them into Dungeons & Dragons adventures. Today, we'll be taking a stroll through sunny meadows, danger-laden black forests, and a few of the other biomes that make up the world of Valheim. And as we do, we'll be searching for a quest worthy of undertaking in a D&D One Shot that takes place in this setting. We'll be talking about what Valheim gives us to build an epic and majestic Viking afterlife adventure, as well as the spaces that Valheim left blank if you're interested in crafting a unique adventure not found in our source medium, as I always am. The adventure video in my D&Dify series precedes a player character creation video, quite obviously for the players at your table, as well as a monsters and challenges video where us dungeon masters sit down and talk about what we're going to throw at you players. And the best way to make sure you don't miss those two additional videos, of course, is by subscribing to the channel on YouTube. Without further ado, let's jump right in and D&Dify Valheim. Standard disclaimer, spoilers for Valheim content ahead. I have my eyes set on one of the tough-to-get-to late-game biomes in Valheim as the setting for our adventure, so if you'd prefer to explore more of Valheim's gorgeous and expansive world for yourself, you may want to put a few more hours into the game before we proceed. In the survival RPG Valheim by Iron Gate Studios, we find an elegant and majestic imagining of an afterlife story based in Norse mythology. The game provides a variety of thematically cohesive areas to explore with beautifully designed natural features and plenty of interesting enemies to fight. A few of these creatures, such as Necks, that are based on Knack, water spirits, Draugrs, which are basically Norse zombies, and a couple others are directly inspired by Norse mythology. But Valheim is the 10th realm, and plenty of the creatures and features of these landscapes have been crafted with some creative liberties by the Iron Gate team. There is actually one surprisingly big gap in Valheim's monster roster when reflecting upon its roots in Norse mythology, though, which is where we'll get the boss monster for this adventure. More on that in a minute. Moving on, we find the combat system of Valheim is fun for video gamey reasons, with the ability to make stronger and stronger weapons and armor to take on greater and greater foes, but for our purposes, this system doesn't offer us much inspiration since it's a pretty straightforward all-martial weapons system. My strong recommendation to Dungeons & Dragons players is to imagine that the player characters get access to the magic we see in the game, and perhaps some that we don't see in Valheim, but may be able to infer existing in the greater Norse mythology, which we'll talk about more in the Valheim player characters video. As for the adventure we're setting out on, I see a couple of options based on the type of gameplay we want to model from Valheim. At its core, Valheim is a game of survival, which makes a great translation to TTRPG play for tables that are considering turning this into a full-blown Valheim campaign setting, a campaign where you would go out and slay creatures for meat, mine for ore, and figure out a fun way to model the construction of a fort. But this doesn't work so well for the self-contained one-shots that we usually build in this series. Valheim also seems to value ritual, as primarily seen in how we go about summoning the game's 5 bosses, and I think this is where we can find our Valheim D&D adventure. So here's what I'm thinking for a loose adventure structure. I'm imagining an adventure where we, Nordic folk that find ourselves in the afterlife scenario of Valheim, begin at the altar of the boss in question. We find a cryptic clue in runic text which spurs us to adventure for a very specific resource. This resource should be dangerous to acquire and perhaps even be located in a different biome than the one that we start in. After we acquire the resource, we must perform a specific ritual which may or may not have dire consequences if performed incorrectly. All of this then culminates in the summoning of our boss monster for the climactic final fight of the adventure. So I see 3 ways to go about setting up this adventure so that knowledge of the video game doesn't provide game-ruining meta-knowledge for our adventure. The first and easiest option is that you could use the boss and ritual resources for one of the bosses from the game, but have an unexpected obstacle present itself in acquiring the resource and/or in the course of the boss fight. Something like how a troll wandered into my solo fight with the Elder. Thanks for that, you big jerk. The second option I see is that you could use one of the bosses from Valheim, but change up the resource and ritual. And thirdly, you could use a totally new boss, complete with a new resource and ritual, and for our purposes, set in one of the undeveloped biomes as of recording this video, the Deep North. This biome feels rife with adventure because there's just something incredibly iconic about Vikings trekking through snowy terrain, and I want even more of it than what I got in the mountain biome. And finally, before we pitch this adventure with our signature adventure prompt, we add the final touch, The boss that you shall fight upon reaching the ritual site in the deep north shall be the mighty, massive, and somehow very obviously missing in retrospect, Jotun, the original name for the giants of Norse mythology that have found a place in so many modern Viking tales. While D&D 5e gives us a decent amount of information to make a thematically cool frost giant to serve as our Jotun, the stat block for the frost giant is as barren as the frozen tundra it walks. So I'll be expanding on how to make this boss fight cool in our monsters and challenges video, while also statting out a few of your favorite enemies from Valheim to run in your one-shot. Alright, we've got all our pieces together, so let's make like some grey dwarves that got taught how to throw better after patch 0.55.7 and pitch this adventure prompt. You are a band of adventurers, Nordic adventurers specifically, who, upon their deaths, found themselves not in Valhalla, but in a mysterious land called Valheim. Yours has been a journey of survival in the often dangerous lands of Valheim, and you've fought tooth and nail to equip yourself with armor and weapons and carve out a safe fort in which to gain temporary reprieve from the hostile denizens of this realm. Fighting your way through many of the powerful Forsaken, you have traveled far to arrive at a frozen altar in the deep north, knowing only that what you face shall be a massive and fearsome foe. What sacrifice does this Forsaken demand? What depraved ritual will it ask of you before it can be summoned? Will you and your companions have the strength to cleanse the land of this darkness this powerful being casts upon it? Find out in this one-shot, based on Valheim. That's the end of the adventure prompt. So, send this to your game master. Please tell me what you think about running or playing a game like this in the comment section down below. And as always, pretty please send me pictures and stories if you end up running this at your own table. I'm a new creator here on YouTube, and that means every like and comment helps get these videos out to an even broader audience. So if you feel I've earned it, a quick like and a comment telling me what kind of Viking player character you're dreaming of playing in this adventure would be super appreciated. If you're watching this on YouTube, a subscribe is also super appreciated, and you can hit that bell icon to get notifications for these videos. Please hit the buttons to do the other things if you're catching this on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy adventuring!